When you are building a world, there are many things you need to take into consideration to make it seem like a real world that people would exist in. There are roads, cities, wells, trees, bridges, and so many other things that are integral to any fantasy world, and one of those things is rocks. Where in this video, I want to go over the 10 best rocks across the entirety of Guild Wars 2. Now we can consider a lot of different things as rocks, where I'm not going to be talking about any mountains in this video because we will save that for a future video. Also, I never really say this, but number 1 is really cool, so make sure you stick around. Let's get started. In the number 10 spot are Throwable Rocks. These are the basic rocks that you can find in many different places around the world, and this is kind of a generic answer that I am just marking off on this list right away, where I want to include a few different ideas in this spot. First things first, there are some random rocks around the road that you can pick up and throw. Some of the rocks have variants, like how the anthill ones will daze foes, but the general ones will knock foes down, and you simply pick them up and just toss them at your enemy. Additionally, there is a warrior skill called Throw Rock, which is the generic downstate skill for warriors. You're basically laying on the ground and desperately finding any rocks around you to throw at your enemies. But an additional thing we can look at are 2 rocks that you can purchase, one from Antonius in Giant's Passage, and one from Engineer Plink in Triskelion Vale. Both of these locations are in Keswick's Hills, where I find it a little interesting that Keswick's Hills is the only map in the game where you can buy a rock like this, and there are 2 different vendors for them. Antonius is a merchant after you complete the Clear the Etten roadblock event, and Engineer Plink is a merchant after you complete the Defend the Quarry side from the Centaur invaders. From either of these merchants you can spend 40 coppers to buy a rock, then you can double click the rock to equip it, and then you can throw the rock at your enemy. However, there are actually more merchants that sell rocks than just these 2, where there are 3 different merchants that sell rocks that are specifically level 22, compared to just these rocks, which are normal, I suppose. I think there are also some rocks that you used to be able to buy, but can't anymore, so there's just a lot of stuff going on here. And overall, I think Throwable Rocks are just a cool addition to the game because it adds a decent amount of flavor, in the same vein as picking up broken planks and whatnot to scrap against enemies. In the number 9 spot are the Lake Doric Catapult Rocks. These are very interesting rocks that you can find at Sadra's Haven and Lake Doric. On the edge of this town, next to the wall that you would look out over the lake, you can find a bunch of catapults, and positioned alongside the catapults are piles of rocks that are used as ammunition. The piles themselves are pretty basic. It's just a random assortment of rocks thrown together for the guards to use in the defense of this town. But I have so many questions. First, these are the Seraph right outside of Divinity's Reach. It's like Shaymore. They are so close to the city, and these would be used in the defense of the city. Why are they using rocks? Centaurs aren't coming up to the town here and they're like, hey Harold, go find some rocks. Why don't they have cannonballs, or a bunch of spears, or specially engineered ammo rounds, or magic balls that blast the centaurs? I mean, look at these White Mantle. They're being all creative and throwing Bloodstone shards. Like, come on. These Seraph deserve better. But do they deserve better? Look at where the catapults are pointed. They are aimed right at Divinity's Reach. Literally all these catapults are doing is looking at some silly little water and then the capital city of their entire kingdom. Are they going to defend the city by bombarding it? What is going on here? Why is there a kitten here in the middle of a war zone? Somebody come rescue this cat. In the number 8 spot are the Fawcett's Bounty Rocks and the Collapsing Chamber. These are very interesting rocks that make up the floor of the second room of this jumping puzzle, where as you look all around the floor, there are a bunch of different rocks that are super loose. There are a few rocks that are stable and is where you're supposed to jump to unless you go across the room super quickly, where if you fail to go across the room or get to one of the stable rocks, the loose rocks will fall down and you will fall along with them down into a cool room with spikes, where fun fact, you can revive yourself after falling and then you can walk around down here, but be careful as you climb out. But there are a couple of things that I like here. Overall, this is just a cool puzzle. Rocks collapsing as you step on them, revealing a giant pit with spikes that have skulls on them is such a cool vibe. The rocks themselves also look pretty decent. I mean, they're basic rocks, but it's kind of interesting how they're just floating here, and that some of them will continue floating there and allow you to jump across them. Unfortunately, I think this puzzle is super easy to cheese because of how short the distance you have to get across is. So I would love to see this type of puzzle added into a jumping puzzle or mini dungeon again in the future, where there is a giant chamber just like this one. In the number 7 spot is the Cardinal Adina fight. Now this is kind of another generic answer because we are talking about a lot of things here in one, but for anyone who doesn't know, Cardinal Adina serves as one of the 2 first bosses. You get to pick which one you want to fight first in the Key of Adashim raid, the most recent and probably last raid to be added to the game, where Adina is an Earth Shin, specifically the Earth Cardinal, like the leader of all the Earth Shin. I won't go into all the details since I made a whole lore video about the Jinn and this place, where Adina herself isn't a giant rock or whatever, but she channels the powers of the earth and they play an integral part in this boss fight. The entire arena you fight on are a bunch of cool geometric rocks, where the arena changes shape as you fight her. She throws pillars at select players that take up space on the ground and can actually protect you. She'll throw boulders at everyone, she summons stalagmites, she summons giant earth elemental hands, and so on and so forth. Pretty much everything about this boss is earth themed, and most of those themes are rock themed, where this boss fight is actually quite a bit of fun and I enjoy doing it. And I just really enjoy the vibes going on here with all the rocks and whatnot. It is a really fitting encounter for who this character is. In the number 6 spot is the basic boulder. Now this is a really special boulder because it's not just a boulder, it's a rock. Where these are a basic guild decoration that people who own a guild hall can purchase from the Master Scribe for 24 silver each. This is an important part of a ton of crafting decorations to make various guild decorations, like a lot of different ones, but they themselves serve as a decoration by being a basic rock. You can throw them all around the guild hall and use them in any way you would like. And I think the basic boulder is one of the better basic decorations in the game because of how versatile it is. It is pretty cheap, so you can buy a ton of them. You can use them in a traditional method to spice up your guild hall by adding different decorations here and there, or you can get more creative. You could use them to make a simple jumping puzzle that you and your friends can jump along on. You can make a sign that spells out a word, or you could use them to draw a pretty picture. The possibilities are endless. In the number 5 spot are Earth Elementals. I had to add them to this list because they are rock creatures, where there are 2 different types of Earth Elementals I want to highlight. The first are the basic Earth Elementals that you can find all throughout the world. They are in many different places. They are a part of many different tasks, they are a part of many different events, they are a part of many different story missions, and they are just a staple of the Guild Wars universe. Even Elementalists have a spell that they can use to summon their own Earth Elemental to fight alongside them. There are also varieties of this basic Earth Elemental, like branded Earth Elementals or ones infused with ley lines. But there are also Earth Elementals known as greater Earth Elementals, where some people may know them as Earth Elemental hands, which appear as a pair of hands that you have to fight. These are super cool monsters that actually have some super cool concept art and their own portrait. You fight them in a few different areas around the world. You fight a core one in Lake Doric, you fight one in Tangled Depths, and you fight one in the Wrathy Hinterlands during the Ogoth the Modnir fight. But the one that many players should be familiar with is how a greater Earth Elemental serves as the final boss for the human tutorial mission of defending Shaymore, where you have to work alongside Logan Thackeray, the Seraph, and potentially other adventurers in order to drive back the Centaur, defeat this greater Earth Elemental, and save Shaymore. In the number 4 spot are all the different Elementalist skills in the game. I went over this a little bit in the last section where I mentioned that Elementalists can summon Earth Elementals to fight alongside them, but I want to highlight all the others. Elementalists channel the power of the elements, fire, water, air, and earth. Where Weavers, the Elementalist specialization from the Path of Fire expansion, can combine 2 elements together for even more spells. And Elementalists are known for being a very complicated profession to play because of the massive amount of skills available to them, where if we were to go through every spell they have, or even every earth spell, we would probably be here for a solid 20 minutes. Where in short, all of the spells are really cool. I really like the themes of this profession, and I love the variety of different animations and graphics that are present on this profession. But let's highlight a few cool ones. The hammer auto attack summons a ton of spikes around you that rip out of the ground. Overload Earth has you rip Earth up from the ground and you ride on it for a short duration. It also leaves behind a short tornado when you are done. Ring of Earth on the dagger has you launch yourself into the air and slam down, causing an explosion of rocks around you. Rock Barrier on Scepter gives you defensive rocks that float around you that you can throw at enemies to damage them. Eruption on Staff will cause an eruption that blasts rocks everywhere. You can also use Unsteady Ground on Staff that will summon a wall of rocks that enemies cannot pass. And those are just a few. There are a ton more, but I like the looks of these ones a lot. In the number 3 spot are all of the floating rocks in the Maguuma jungle. There are a ton of floating rocks in the game, like in Bloodstone Fen, but I really like the ones in Maguuma. On average, they're just larger rocks that are floating in the air. They have some cool foliage growing on them, generally moss or grass, and I think they look really cool. The idea of floating rocks or islands in general is just very magical and feels like a really cool concept, and it's just a unique experience to come across them compared to running past normal ground. But there are 3 sets of floating rocks that I particularly like and want to highlight, and all 3 are related to jumping. The first is a small bridge that is formed by a collection of these rocks going over the Jest River in Metricore province. This is in the starting zone for the Asura, and I just really love this. I've jumped across them many a time. I still do even though we have mounts. To go to another starting zone, the second set of rocks is Morgan's Spiral, where this is a really fun jumping puzzle that also leads to a second jumping puzzle, and it's pretty much just a bunch of floating rocks. There are some that are spinning around a lot, some that have trees growing on them, and just a bunch that you can jump across on. I love this jumping puzzle. But the third set is all of the rocks in Goem's lab. This is another jumping puzzle and is located back in Metrica province, and is one of my favorite jumping puzzles in the entire game, and the floating rocks make up most of the jumping puzzle. Where just like with Morgan's Spiral, this one would not be the same without these floating rocks. In the number 2 spot are the general boulders around the world that you can pick up. On the surface level, this is kind of a combination of the number 10 spot and the number 6 spot, where you can find boulders all around the world you can pick up. There are large rocks that you hold in your hand, you can throw the boulder to hit an enemy and knock them down. However, there is a really fun thing with this skill that I doubt many people know. If you play as an Elementalist, you actually unlock a special ability whenever you hold a boulder, where you can throw the boulder like normal if you choose, or you can use the boulder to call down a meteor from the sky onto your enemy, where this is a stronger version of the normal throw boulder because it has longer range, hits in an area, is harder to dodge, deals more damage, and is a direct attack instead of being a projectile. Where I just love the flavor in the game with how Elementalists gain access to this special skill. But the part about boulders that I like even more is their usage and puzzles around the game, where there are a variety of different applications to boulders when it comes to interacting with puzzles. Where the most basic idea is using the boulder to weigh down a pressure plate so you can run through a door that the pressure plate opens. We see this idea in a variety of different areas, like in Fawcett's Bounty like we talked about earlier. But another example is how we can also see boulders used in the Tears of Adlauco mini dungeon, where you have to throw the boulder at the gong to open it. Where I am someone who loves puzzles, and the usage of and interactions with boulders really makes them one of my favorite rocks in the entire game. I want to point out one honorable mention, and that is the Angry Pet Rock and Mini Rock, which are a cool bounty boss and mini respectively. I like them a lot, just like the others on my honorable mentions list, but they just barely didn't make it to the list because I just like the ones I listed more. They are basically in the 11th spot. But now for the number 1 spot, for my favorite rock in the entire game, and it's gotta go to the Strange Rock, where this is a super interesting item added in Living World Season 3, Episode 2, Rising Flames, where you can find a strange rock across Ember Bay as a rare drop from different enemies or from salvage debris, which you get from Skritt stashes, which requires you to have a Skritt worker contract from the task merchant at the Skritt Anchorage. Where to summarize, this is just a rare drop, and it was actually a mystery when the map first came out because nobody knew what this item was for, where the community came together to solve the mystery of this strange rock and actually discovered something really cool. See, this is actually a part of a chain of events that you can do in order to unlock a special item. The first part is to get the strange rock, but you can then bring that rock to the lava at the top of Destruction's Maw to get a prompt that will let you turn that strange rock into a round lump. You can then bring that round lump to the lava inside of the furnace chamber and get a prompt that will let you turn the round lump into an encrusted ring. You can then bring that encrusted ring to the lava near Titan's Perch to turn that encrusted ring into a suit-covered ring. And then finally, you can bring that suit-covered ring to the lava below the sealed entrance to turn it into Rurik's engagement ring, which this ring is an ascended ring that you can attune, infuse, and select stats for it. Where when it comes to the ascended item itself, this is a pretty expensive ring and there are cheaper options. However, it is a very special ring that might be fun to have equipped on your character for that reason. I just absolutely love this adventure that you go on, where you have to go all around Ember Bay to turn this strange rock into this awesome ascended ring. But I think it gets even better when you understand the story going on here. See, Prince Rurik is a very popular character from the original Guild Wars, where his father is King Adalburn, whose ghost you fight is in the Ascalonian Catacombs dungeon, where Rurik was betrothed to Lady Althea, who is a powerful mesmer from Ascalon. But while they were engaged, they could never get married as Lady Althea died in the Syrian as the Char laid siege to Ascalon. Prince Rurik and his father Adalburn had a disagreement where Adalburn basically wanted to stay and wage war against the Char, compared to Rurik who wanted to take his people and flee to Kryta, where the king and prince did their respective desires, and Rurik took many soldiers and refugees across the Shiver Peaks and into Kryta. However, Prince Rurik sacrificed his life in order to save his people as he held off the attacking Stone Summit dwarves so his people could get away, eventually falling in battle to the leader of the Stone Summit, Dagnar Stonepate. Later, Prince Rurik was reanimated by the Undead Lich, Vizier Kilbron, who who was the one who sunk ore beneath the oceans to prevent the Char from conquering it, and who seek to fulfill the Flameseeker prophecies by taking the Scepter of Ore to summon the Titan army into Tyria, where adventurers who were saved by Prince Rurik in the Shiver Peaks eventually came to the very gates of hell to defeat the Undead Lich, but was met by a reanimated version of their dear prince, and they had to strike him down in battle, but this allowed Rurik's soul to be given peace, and his spirit traveled to the Hall of Heroes. But it is very likely, or proven now, that this undead reanimated version of Prince Rurik still had his engagement ring to Lady Althea on him as he was taken to the Ring of Fire, where sometime before or as he died, his ring was returned to the earth, where as centuries had passed, the ring was covered in layers of soot and rock and became the strange rock that we started our journey with here, a strange rock that is my favorite rock in the entire game. And that's my list. We got into a bit of a lore video at the end there, but I hope you enjoyed. This was a lot of fun to make because there are just so many cool rocks all across the world. If you like this type of video, consider watching Top 10 Trees in Guild 2 or Top 10 Ambient Creatures in Guild 2, both of which are on your screen right now. I hope you all are taking good care of yourselves. Have a good one, everyone.